Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, helping you navigate home care and senior residences.
Roll your soul through every open door. Count your blessings to find what you look for. Turn my sorrow into treasure gold.
And welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Del Vecchio here, specializing in life transitions, home care, and the senior living industry.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and author of Someone Died, Now What?
Corey, you have, first of all, you're involved as the director of an amazing kids camp in Myra's Kids Foundation, and you've got a big event coming up shortly, don't you?
We do. So here we are, taking the plunge, meeting in person, getting together for the camp that many of you have heard me talk about. It's a free weekend-long bereavement camp for children ages 6 to 17, Myra's Kids Foundation. Well, that free camp comes with the generous donations of a number of individuals. So we are holding an in-person fundraiser on May 25th at the Jardin Royal Mount. It is outdoors, and you're going to hear more about that next week. But we're excited. We have a lot of people that have stepped up to help support the program. Some people are donating some of the sweets for the program, and it'll be a beautiful cocktail dînatoire, and I'm just very excited about it.
All for a great cause and these wonderful kids that you're supporting.
Yeah. So thanks for letting me give a little bit of a plug. What I'll do is I will put it on our Facebook page in case anybody is interested and wants to come meet some of the volunteers, the campers, or just have a really nice night out. Well, you have the option of wearing a mask, but it is outdoors. Okay. That's all that said, Matt, we got to get on with the show. Right? So welcome to our segment of Helping Moms and Dads. We're doing a lot of information and in sharing and how to support the sandwich generation. And I'm really quite humbled by the dynamic guests that we've had. And today is no exception. I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt. Who do we have this week?
Oh, if you're looking forward to this, and we're going to be talking about why caregivers specifically, and it could even be general public, why are we so angry these days? And, almost 1 in 4 Canadians, believe it or not, play the role of caregiver. A lot of the times, this is a role that is not even asked for, not educated in terms of how to deal with caregiving. And they go through a wide variety of emotions during their journey, one of which is anger, which is difficult for them to talk about because it's often a taboo topic, as they don't want to admit that caring for a loved one is making them angry. So we wanted to bring in Claire Webster to discuss this subject. Claire is the founder and ambassador, McGill Dementia Education Program, and founder and president of Caregiver Crosswalk. Claire's been on the show several times with us, offering her wonderful words of advice. Claire, welcome back to Life Unrehearsed.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, so glad you're on. This is such an important topic because I would say, Claire, the pandemic, well over 2 years into it, and we just want to sort of wipe it clean. However, unfortunately, from a caregiver's perspective, and sometimes general public, tired, overwhelmed, and angry. And you did a wonderful presentation recently on the topic of anger. Can you share a little bit about that presentation?
Yeah, I recently gave a presentation for the Brainy Boomers from McGill, and basically, I listen to a lot of different presentations on caregiving, and the topic of anger doesn't come up as much as it really should. As a caregiver, as a former caregiver myself, I spent 12 years just extremely angry. And I feel that, many of the clients, caregivers that I work with, especially due to the pandemic and a lot of restrictions that were posed on them, are just really, really angry. But people are ashamed to talk about it. And so I wanted to do this talk and just make them feel like, hey, you know what? You're not alone. And anger is a normal part of caregiving. And so,
what are some?
So some of the reasons why people are angry. What happens is normally, when and this could be with regards to any type of illness, okay, whether you're caring for a child or you're caring for an older person, but it's that moment that you receive this news that is going to interrupt your life, okay? It's like what we call the shock factor, where you get this news and life is just not going to be the same. Okay, and people go through various issues with anger. So the ones that I went through and the ones that I work with a lot of people is, first of all, the one is, how could this have happened to my husband, my wife, my mom, or my dad? Like, how could this have happened, right? Like, you're in shock and then you get angry. How could this have happened? The second thing is that you go through, like, how could this happen to me? Like, what about my life, right? Like, how could this be happening to me? And when you're dealing with an example like an illness like dementia, a lot of people that I work with, they're like, I don't have the patience for this. I don't have the tools for this. I don't have the energy. How am I going to get through the next few years? How long is this going to last? Like, I just can't do it, right? And a lot of times anger is also caused by financial reasons, because unfortunately there are certain illnesses that there's a big financial commitment, and the financial part causes people a lot of stress. It also causes a lot of a conflict among siblings or conflict among other family members, right? But a big one that a lot of people don't want to admit, which I hear a lot from patients, is that how can I be placed in a position to care for this person that I can't stand, that I hate? So that could be, the son or daughter that had a really, really challenging relationship with a parent their entire life, and now they're forced to care for them. Or a husband or wife that have had a very tumultuous marriage, and now they're forced to care for each other. So those are really the top ones that I get.
It's a lengthy list. There's no question, Claire, and I can resonate with so many of them. As you know, I hear them in my practice as well, and so we can toss it back and forth around. These are really, I'm so glad that you are raising the topic and putting it out there so people can, I hope, hear that anger is a normal part of the process, and it's not that you're angry, it's what are you going to do with the anger. So let's go back to some of the reasons. You said you often feel like your life is being interrupted, which in fact it has. So yeah. I'm just curious, would you say that, is it fair to say that might be one of the leading causes of anger?
Yeah, it's like, especially when you're talking about, an aging population, a couple, for example, in their early 70s, where somebody has now suffered some type of, significant health issue where, the plans for the future, that I've seen cases where the husband or both, the husband and wife has suddenly retired and now they have all these plans, and all of a sudden that ends. Like, it's like, this is, everything that we had envisioned for our future is no more. Okay. And so that's, at the beginning, it causes a lot of shock. It causes a lot of sadness, but then that turns to anger. And, I think also of the sandwich generation, like myself, when I was caring for my parents, when I began my journey in my late 30s, I was angry because I was caring for 3 young kids. I had a career, and my dad had just died. I had to care for my mom. And I was so angry all the time because of all of these responsibilities, the weight of the world that was on me. And I just couldn't escape the anger. My husband would say to me, like, you're so angry all the time, right? And I was angry. I was like, I was sad for my mother, but at the same time, I was angry towards this disease. Right? Yeah. So I see that a lot.
And like you say, it's because your life had been interrupted. It's the lack of control, I'm sure, which has something to do with it. And what I wanted to ask, and we're talking with Claire Webster, she's a caregiving expert, about why more and more caregivers are feeling angry and what we could do about it. And Claire, this next question is not just necessarily about caregivers, it's about anger in general, because when you are angry, sometimes it goes a little overboard and there are consequences, and you could speak from the heart from this. What are some of the consequences of anger?
Okay, well, obviously there's, people have different coping mechanisms. So the first one could be that you're taking it out on your family, right? You're taking it out on your spouse, you're taking it out on your children, right? The other thing is that, I think almost everybody uses something, like these coping mechanisms. That could be, it could be wine, it could be cigarettes, it could be food, it could be gambling, it could be drugs, right? Or it could be a combination of different things. But the problem is that people use different one of these, like self-medicating to manage the anger. But unfortunately, this dependency can easily become an addiction. And we saw, without a doubt, during COVID, with isolation and the lack of resources that people had access to, and the forced isolation, people were, the increase in alcohol, the increase in drugs, the increase in smoking, definitely, there was a big increase in all of those areas. And, once you get caught up in that, that becomes habit formation, it becomes very, very difficult to change the habit. Even if, like in my mother's case, even after my caregiving role ended, I had developed this dependency on wine that took a long time to try to manage.
You're of course raising I'm sure this is striking a chord in a lot of people. So we want to we got to go to traffic, but we want to move when we come back to what are some of the strategies to minimize the anger and discuss the importance of seeking support, et cetera, et cetera. Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota, along with my co-host, Matt Del Vecchio, and we are continuing our segment on helping moms and dads. This afternoon, we're figuring out why caregivers are so friggin' angry and what to do about it. So Claire Webster's on the line with us, and she's here. Claire, we talked about the why. Now let's talk about the what to do. The now, my favorite topic, the now what. So what are some strategies to minimize anger?
Okay, well, I like, when I work with different family caregivers, I really talk to them about the importance of education, very similar to what your last guest said about, understanding the illness, understanding the condition. Anger often comes from a place where people really feel like they don't have an understanding, okay? They feel lost. They don't know how to navigate, whether it's the illness, they don't know how to navigate the resources. So I always talk to families about being one step ahead, okay? So you receive this news, you receive the diagnosis. First of all, you really have to become as educated as possible, right? Understand the illness, understand how it's going to progress. Because by understanding how it's going to progress, it's going to help you make plans for the future, okay? So you can't just say, okay, I'll wait till this happens or wait till this happens. No, the better prepared you are, it's not going to necessarily make the journey, any happier, let's say, but you will feel more empowered, right? So education. You also really need to understand the support services that are available to you. I made the mistake, which many people do, to say, many thanks, but we're not there yet. I don't need support. My husband, my wife will never let anybody in the house. We don't need the help. You do need the help, okay? So you need to seek out what are the types of services that can support you, okay? Don't wait till you have a nervous breakdown or that you reach an epic episode of absolute anger to go and get support. So try to understand what are the resources in the community that can support you. And also, when you do have that opportunity to be in front of the doctor, ask questions. Many people are afraid to ask questions. You're in front of the doctor, he tells you this, you get a prescription, etc. And how many people leave the doctor's office with like, oh my gosh, I never asked that question. So arrive prepared. Have a list of questions, a list of concerns, right? When you have that moment, right? You are entitled to ask questions. And then also with regards to the healthcare system, as you are entitled to receive help, you have to be proactive, right? A lot of people are angry because they say, oh, we called the CLSC, they never called us back. You have to be proactive. Always politically polite, like politically correct, but be proactive. Don't just think you could sit by the phone and have them come and call you. So, and I would say, very important also is that the caregivers have to please give themselves permission to have a life. They have to give themselves permission to go for a walk, to exercise, to have a cup of coffee with a friend, to have a glass of wine with a friend, to do things that bring some joy to them. Because if they feel like they're not getting a break, not even like a hour break, okay, for sure the stress and burden is going to increase, right? But so many people feel guilty about just taking a little bit of time, even if it's a half hour, 1 hour in the day for themselves, right? Because in order for you to provide the best quality of care to the person that you love, okay, you have to take the best quality of care of yourself, right? That's it. So if you're not respecting your needs and yourself and what you need, how are you going to have the energy and patience to care for somebody else?
listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt and Corey, and we're talking to caregiving expert Claire Webster about why more and more caregivers are feeling angry and what can be done about it. You know, Claire, in listening to you again, we are talking about caregivers, but I think it resonates with a lot of people, which you are talking about. And I just want to reiterate some of the important points. And Claire, you know, we're both involved with a lot of seniors and their adult children. Corey, the same thing with you. And, you know, I think what I see is that when you talk about getting yourself more educated and informed, that's important because you're feeling on an island on your own very often. And you may not even think these resources are out there, but they are. And once you get more educated, how many times have we hung up on the phone and the last line is, I feel better already, they're saying. And just because they're a little bit more informed and they we're able to understand a little bit more. And I want to reiterate the doctor's office. You know, you're in and out so quickly, right, Claire? You know that. And if you're not prepared in advance, next thing you know, your doctor's appointment is over with, and guaranteed you're driving home in the car and you're saying, I should have asked this, I should have asked that. And so this is something that you always stress to families. And I'm glad you did mention that. Claire, I want to talk about the last point you mentioned, which I think is probably the most important, and that is self-care. I want to talk a little bit more about that. The old adage, you know, in the airplane, and they put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Yeah. I see and I hear. I even sometimes hear excuses that I can't afford to take care of myself, or I don't have the time, or there are excuses. And Claire, I'd like you to talk a little bit more on the importance of self-care because you've been there and you are a huge advocate, and it has to start there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so what because I was in a really bad, very, very bad place, I suffered a burnout as a result of being too angry, and, you know, it has a big impact. So I think that the road to healing began when I had to take a triage of my life and really look at the people in my life and the commitments in my life and say, okay, what is adding value to my life and what is not, right? What are the people that are that are toxic to me, or what are those projects that every single time I get that email to go on this committee, I cringe, right? And so, you know, my mom passed away in 2016, but I live my life this way now, is where I do my best to try to constantly surround myself with the more positive. So, you know, for example, even if I get invited for dinners or lunches, I always say to myself, you know, are these people going to make me feel really good at the end of the evening or at the end of a lunch, or are they going to get me riled up, right? I think everybody has that situation, right? Sometimes you get together with certain people that they just get you really riled up, right?
An opposite effect.
Am I going to participate?
Usually you're related to them,
right? Or,
so
you know, am I going to go and sit on this, but be involved in this committee or this project, and I feel like it's a total waste of my time. So it's all about really protecting your energy, and also know that your anger can be converted into something positive. I have to say, my career was born out of my anger.
So
right?
True.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, Claire, you know what? We're already running out of time, and your words of advice are so important, really resonate, I think, with a lot of people. We want to thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you so much, Matt and Courtney and Corey. Thank you so much.
How can people reach you, Claire?
Okay, so people can reach me two ways. So by email, it's claire@carecrosswalk.com, or they could email also at dementia@mcgill.ca, because we have a lot of great resources at the McGill University Dementia Education Program. So just Google McGill Dementia, and that's how you can best reach me and get a hold of some amazing resources.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This is Claire Webster, founder and ambassador of McGill Dementia Education Program and founder and president of Caregiver Crosswalk. Corey, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week on Life Unrehearsed, getting our legal documents in order as we age has never been more important. We're going to talk with a notary that's going to provide us with some very important words of advice. And we're going to talk about how to do fundraising as people come together and masks come off.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed. And as a reminder, for all your inquiries or assistance with life transitions, elder care planning, and